First things first, previews for Avowed dropped. IGN got to try it. Specifically, the one and only Destin, I believe is the one that did this video. And Destin is actually a friend of the channel, pops in every once in a while to chat. And so let's see what they had to say about the game. My little backstory with this, just as a point of reference, I think the game is probably going to be one of those 8 out of 10s. I think it's going to be much smaller in scope than people expect. It's probably closer to like, I don't know if they've said how long it is, but I would guess probably 25 to 30 hours. I don't think it's going to be massive. I think it's going to be pretty clunky. Combat's probably not going to be very good, but it's going to be one of those Obsidian games that you either love or you find it just kind of lackluster. There's not a lot of in between. So let's see what they said.
Avowed was a surprising delight to play for the first time. After a lot of questions about the shift in art direction from the teaser trailer, questions about the length, and a combat demo on the Xbox stage that had many asking if the game was earlier in development than expected, I'm happy to report that Avowed is feeling great, looking great, and offering a compelling story based on the early slice I got to play at an Xbox event.
To be clear, I do think that art shift did the game a lot of damage because people saw that initial reveal and were like, ooh, dark, gritty fantasy. This is going to be Obsidian's Elder Scrolls, but darker and grittier, even better. And then we saw the first reveals of it and it's like super vivid, colorful, artsy fartsy. And it was like, oh, like this isn't bad, but it's just not what I was expecting or hoping for. You know, it's why pivots like that are really, really dangerous.
Just a real quick note on this footage, all of it was provided by Microsoft, so I'm gonna have to do my best to edit this video while describing my own gameplay session, which looked really good, so I'm very confused as to why we weren't allowed to capture, but alas. My journey began just after the opening main mission in Avowed, and we've been sent on a task to find an expedition team. It turns out, as it often does in RPGs, that fate had other plans for them. Kai, our green-skinned companion, who just happens to be voiced by Mass Effect's Garrus Vakarian actor, Brandon Keener, keeps things lighthearted with quips and remarks about this new area we're exploring.
Well, better a flood than a cave-in.
The banter is welcome and sparse, as he only chimes in occasionally to make a quip, like when I pause to admire the view.
The bridge is out, but that looks like the way to the relic.
And the view is very pretty. Avowed has done a great job leaning into the art style the larger Pillars of Eternity series is known for, and had me stopping to admire waterfalls in the distance and moss-covered structures that set the aesthetic tone for this mysterious cavern we are diving deeper into. Avowed's world design is shaping up nicely too. As I dove deeper, I would discover walls that could be blown up to traverse a new path, or puzzles that would open a secret new area with a large chest if I threw my shock explosives at a few tucked away circuits I found by exploring off the beaten path. These puzzles have the added bonus of revealing coveted loot like a powerful ring that would offer some choice stat bonuses for my character. When I was
More than anything, this is giving me those, again, Xbox 360 vibes. You know, like it's not gonna be any game of the year contender. Probably it's not gonna win or get 10 out of 10s across the board or anything, but it's just gonna be like solid. If you're looking for something that's just a decent RPG offering, it's a good one to go at. And honestly, it's really bizarre, but it's games with the smaller scope that are not trying to be the big quadruple A whatever that I find more compelling right now. I don't know if I'm just burnt out on quadruple A fun like Skull and Bones. I don't know if that's just me, but I find this stuff much more compelling.
Wasn't exploring the depths of the oceanic cave, I had to swim through it, only to find myself facing off against the Zara, which I probably pronounced incorrectly. But these are lizard-like creatures with your standard human weapons like swords, shields, and bows, and they make for good fodder as you learn your beginning attacks. Combat in Avowed is much better than I had anticipated. You quickly become accustomed to using flasks to regenerate not just your health, but more importantly your essence, which allows the execution of your most powerful attacks. As the barbarian, I found myself stalking spiders in the caverns and plotting my attack. To begin, I use Kai's ability Fire and Ice via the radial wheel you access by holding down the left bumper, if you're playing with a gamepad obviously. Fire and Ice sees Kai teleport to the target and then unload a powerful bullet into the spider's face. Then I command him to use his area of effect attack, Leap of Daring, that has him slam into the ground and briefly stun everyone around him. During that time, I've been closing the gap, and as I was using two weapons, I first charged up my right-handed axe, which offers a powerful attack that inflicts frost damage accumulation to nearby enemies.
And presumably each companion has different little skills and abilities like that, so there's ways to really hone in different combos based on your playstyle. Okay.
After holding the right trigger to empower this attack, I managed to freeze my opponent just for a moment. Then I unleash more powerful essence abilities. First, I shout to push back the smaller spiders who are slowly surrounding me, and while stunned, I then select charge and ram my body with force into the biggest guy in the room, spider. Then I follow it up with a flurry of blows with the left trigger, which holds my nimble sword for a flurry of strikes that results in the dispatch of the last spider standing in the room. Later, I would return as a mage, which was described as the most difficult of the three classes available to use. Abilities for this character included an ethereal staff that you could materialize with essence, or projectiles that you could track your target with, and standard attacks that had you flicking your wand to and fro while the smaller spells came out of the
Flicking wands.
tip, damaging your target. Additional essence abilities included a spear that was a bit faster than the staff, as you'd expect, and several different projection or buff spells to help your hits land with a bit harder thud. My personal favorite, however, was an ability that had you snap your Book of Magic shut to send a wave of damage-dealing aura at everything around you. It just looked cool seeing a book wreck everything in the immediate vicinity. Make no mistake though, combat was also challenging. I was chugging potions with reckless abandon as I knew this was just a demo, but it was clear that you'll need to master the balance between your spellcasting, defense, and gear options for maximum efficiency.
Next one's mine.
Digging into the menus, I found that you could spec out your character with a second weapon set that would be accessed with the press of the Y button on the controller. The potential that something so simple offers had me excited because with one press you could access a significantly different playstyle. Combat felt clean, intuitive, and had a depth I didn't expect. I can't wait to dive into it more. And fortunately, the oomph your attack animations that many felt were missing from a demo on the Xbox stage earlier this year have seemingly been implemented. Enemies react how you'd expect them to when you slam them with a sword or blast them with a spell. Eventually on our journey, Kai and I would run into Cademan, a young explorer who had managed to survive the Zarup assault. His friends from the expedition team weren't so lucky, however. After lamenting that he's never touched a girl and his looming fate wasn't fair, we were given several conversation options. Kai, we can't let this kid die a virgin. Can you help him? Give Cayman a healing potion. Let's get you back on your feet.
It's about time we start exploring real world issues in gaming again, you know?
3, toughen up, kid. I'm not wasting my supplies on you. I, of course, picked the top one. Kai responded, not with that. Oh, you mean with healing him? He would then go on to make me offer my potion instead. Cayman was back on his feet and offered us some advice that would help us continue our journey. But because I also wanted to try out combat as a mage, I got to see what happened if you always picked the bottom option. Toughen up, kid, my character shouted. Cademan said something Kai called nonsense and pleaded with me to help him. I, however, refused to offer him the life-saving potion, resulting in his immediate death. Did I loot his corpse? You're damn right I did. It's situations like that which will make Avowed really stand out if they are plentiful enough. Can you really be that evil? Apparently so, and I look forward to doing a sane person playthrough where I don't murder everyone if I can avoid it, and a playthrough where I'm the biggest jerk possible because, well, that's kind of where the fun lies now, isn't it? The demo ended with an encounter where we met Sargamas. Sargamas is a gold-skinned deity-like creature who sent us to find an item and return it. But like our explorer friends from earlier in the demo, there were other plans afoot, and it wasn't long until we came face to face with the skeleton boss and a pesky skeleton priest that would heal the large group of enemies we were facing off against.
There's the relic. It can't be as easy as just grabbing it, can it?
No, Kai, it apparently can't be. Once in battle and realizing I was greatly outnumbered, I ran out of the room to survey the battlefield. And after taking out a few of the lower rank and file skeletons just outside of the priest's healing aura, I identified the one thwarting my plans of murder. Can you murder a skeleton? And I turned his bones to ice and dust. Just as I had cleared the grunts, I was finally ready to take on the skeleton boss with Kai, but just as I had him on the ropes, the power in the building went out for everyone playing the demo. It's okay though, because Avowed had made its impression. My doubts about it have faded away, and I'm left excited for its release in February. This small...
It's probably good that you weren't actually locally capturing the footage then, so it actually ended up helping. They're like, yeah, we can't actually let you record your own footage because we're prone to rolling blackouts. Sorry.
Slice Obsidian gave us the opportunity to play was a treat. And while it's a tiny glimpse, our 50-minute demo flew by in the blink of an eye. And that is always a good sign. For more on Avowed, check out this gameplay from Xbox that was released earlier this year. It's gotten a lot.
I mean, it's really interesting. I don't think it will be for everybody, but that's also true of most Obsidian games. You know, they kind of fit into a niche of people that are looking for really deep, usually role-playing, and the gameplay is usually a little clunky. This actually looks a good bit better than it did even earlier this year and then last year. So it does look like they've made improvements. It's still gonna be clunky, and I don't expect it to be the biggest game or like on a AAA scale, but probably on that AA scale. And it's the kind of game that fits really well within a service like Game Pass, where normally you might sit out and wait for it to go on sale just because it's like, I'm not sure if I'm like that thrilled about it or excited about it, so I'll probably wait on the sidelines for it. But on a service like Game Pass, it just makes sense because you can try it for 20-30 minutes, see if it clicks with you, and then jump in if it does. So I wish them the best of luck while they finish it up and wrap it up, because it's slated for, I think, next year, early next year. They don't say, but if it does end up sticking to that date, I mean, it looks like they were making improvements and it's getting better. And the fact that he's saying it's getting more and more polished is good. I don't think it's been all sunshine and rainbows, though, in terms of the reception, though. There have been some mixed reactions to some of what they have shown. There were some people that felt that it played very, very flatly, that it was just kind of uninteresting and a wee bit boring. Let me see if I have this pulled up. Yeah, Pen to Pixels. I haven't heard of these guys, but Pen to Pixels. Middling combat and generic level layout leaves Avowed feeling incredibly ordinary in this gameplay-centric demo. Whatever makes Avowed special either hasn't surfaced yet or simply isn't there. And I'm sorry. Yeah, if your lead for a preview of a WRPG is combat, you must have literally no experience playing WRPGs. Oh man, you're gonna get torn apart for this clickbait and stuff. And I don't, I'm not familiar with Pen to Pixels or Janet Garcia, but they say that they were underwhelmed by their session. Combat didn't feel good, abilities weren't interesting, and level design was leaned into an arena-like structure that limited your fighting options. And my biggest gripe is that I couldn't feel the weight behind my hits. Avowed's combat felt like sitting on a sofa that has a plastic cover on it. While I was given an hour with Avowed, the section I got to play had about 30 minutes of content, allowing me to try different classes. Since my session was so short, I have little to say about the narrative one way or the other. Maybe the story is Avowed's secret sauce. Maybe the gameplay hits with more time. Maybe I just need to find the right weapon or ability. Maybe the slice just isn't Avowed's best, but for now, all I can go on is what I've played, and I left with nothing to latch on to. Yeah, it seems like mostly it's complaints about combat. Obsidian's brand of humor definitely shines through here, but it's too soon to say how dynamic that humor will be. For now, it's the low-hanging fruit of uninspired sex jokes. I'm not ready to die. I've never seen or touched a girl. It's not fair, yells the first NPC I encountered. I'm then given the option to say, Kai, we can't let this kid die a virgin. Can you help him? Give him a health potion or make a snide comment about not wanting to waste supplies on him. I selected a few different combinations during my playtime, and the only real difference is that he dies if you don't heal him and you can loot his body. I do love to loot the dead, especially when they die at my hands, but that's pretty run-of-the-mill outcome. So they're upset that they made a joke about a virgin, him being a virgin. Make of that what you will. Make of that what you will. I think the game looks solid enough for what it is. And what it is like a AA RPG. And in that capacity, I think it's going to be probably pretty good. Pretty good. Not a masterpiece, not amazing, but probably pretty good. That's the thing, though, Ice, is I'm not sure if something can flop when it's on Game Pass and it's a first-party Xbox title. Like, it doesn't mean... Flop for Game Pass doesn't mean the same thing it does for games that are releasing in a more traditional way. Because for Xbox, it's about building out the portfolio and it's hours played. And if there's a solid number of people that are interested in this, that play it through and play multiple times, then it's perfectly successful. Because again, all it's really about is keeping people subscribed to Game Pass and building out that library. Yeah, Outer Worlds was okay. This will be as well. That's kind of where I'm expecting it. That's my guess. They want people to sub? Yeah, I mean, of course. But just as importantly as new signups, they need people to keep their sign up. They need people to stay subscribed. And that's how you do it. When did everyone turn on Outer Worlds? No, Lucas, it's not turning on Outer Worlds. It's just acknowledging that it was a solid game that had a number of problems. But that doesn't mean it's not worth playing. It's again, like the distinction, if it's like a 7.5 out of 10, critically, it still could very well be worth playing for a lot of people. It just means it's not like a masterpiece or anything. But I think a lot of people, and I mean, I think we're all guilty of it, we kind of get in this spot where we feel like if a game is a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, therefore it's bad. And it's like, no, that's a very good score. It should be very, very rare to get a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10, you know? But following along with this, there's been further drama with Avowed because there was an interview that Mr. Matty and Lord Cognito did with some people that are working on Avowed. And I'll just play the little clip about it. And then I'll follow up with why this turned into a wee bit of a scandal.
You could talk about this part right now, but I was curious about console.
Just to be clear, in case you're not familiar, Lord Cognito, Mr. Matty plays, and then these are two devs that are working on the game.
Performance, specifically the Series X part right now, but I was curious about console performance, specifically the Series X. Can we talk frame rates at this time, or we're waiting a little?
Well, I'm
not yet.
Probably not the best person to. Oh, sorry, talking off mic. I'm probably not the best person to talk about that. We can probably. I mean, we can probably.
Yeah, I mean, nitty gritty of it. Performance is one of the last things we figure out, right? We are core, and I think we've announced this elsewhere. We are core targeting 30 frames per second bare minimum. Like that's the expectation.
This is just, I'm just gonna point this out because I always find this funny when people say these types of things. But it's like, it better be like 30 FPS being the bare minimum. Yes, I mean it's literally, this goes without saying, but 30 FPS is the minimum. Because can you imagine if they were like, yeah, 15 FPS, that's the minimum. Okay. You're like, of course 30 is the minimum. It's like when people are like, oh yeah, our game, we really think our game is good and people will like it. It's like, yeah, if you didn't say that, I'd be very worried.
You know, it's a first-person single-player game. You don't necessarily need that 60 frames, and that allows us to get a lot juicier with VFX and lighting and all this other stuff. So it's a trade-off we opted to make relatively early, and we're really happy with that. I mean, the game's running pretty smooth for how, you know, visually dense it is. And that was always our goal. But as far as like a greater understanding of performance spec, we're still figuring all that out. It's one of the last things you do.
Which, to be clear, is normal in development. They kind of set internal targets for what they think they can do. They get all the systems working, and then they start to polish it up and figure out final performance abilities and stuff. So fair enough. But people heard that, and they were like, oh, so 30. Furthermore, he says it's a first-person game, so you don't really need to bother with 60 FPS. I mean, I would say first-person games, for me personally, it's more important to have 60 if it's first-person than third-person. Third-person, I can handle 30 all day, every day. Totally fine. First-person, if it's 30 frames, I often get motion sick, and it can like actually make it so I can't play the game. I've told you guys many times, I straight up can't play Doom even at high frame rates in first person because it makes me motion sick. And any other games like Starfield, trying to play that at launch on console at 30 frames, basically undoable for me. And I know it's like spoiled PC gamer, boohoo, cry me a river. Totally understand that. Very much a first world problem. But for me, just first person makes me motion sick. So hearing that this is like targeting minimum 30 is initially worrisome because you're like, I mean, I'd really hope that we could do bigger and better than that. However, with this, they followed it up. People have started quoting the interview and running with it. And they say Avowed runs at 30 FPS on X and S, confirms Obsidian. They say that that's the minimum target. There might be a performance mode that they add in later, but as of right now, 30 is what they're targeting minimum, blah, 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 which is true, I think, of literally any game in development today. And then people pulling up the Aaron Greenberg tweets from 2020 about the Series X and S, where he says 60 FPS will be the standard, but the architecture allows us to support up to 120. Once again, the impression is just that it's once more being held back on Xbox consoles, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Now, again, to be fair, this is not a game you're playing for like the super twitchy combat or anything. So of all the games that could manage 30 and be totally fine, this is one of those. But again, it's just another feeling for a lot of people that this generation, we're not really stepping that far above, because this game, just to be honest, graphically doesn't seem like a leap forward, a generational leap forward. So you're like, okay, well then why is it only going at 30? Because a lot of people are okay if there's not a big visual leap forward if they get double the frames. But in this case, it's just 30 frames. Doesn't look like that big of a leap forward. But what I'd counter with is that this is Obsidian. Their games have never necessarily been the best lookers. That's just not what they do. You play Obsidian games for the mechanics, for the writing and stuff. You don't play it for the fidelity, which is why it probably, even though this is discourse that's being had right now, I think when the game launches, it's not that big of a deal. Same with like even Starfield. A lot of people talked about the 30 FPS limit for that game at launch and then just kind of moved on and stopped talking about it when the game came out. Granted, there was a lot more to talk about when the game eventually came out, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. Joe, thank you for the $2 super chat. Will Kingdom Come Deliverance eat Avowed with dates being so close? Will it eat it up? I think it'll eat up a lot of the discourse, because I think it's going to be much bigger, but it's also not on Game Pass. So I think there will be a lot of people that maybe don't have a lot of expendable income that'll try out Avowed first and then Kingdom Come later. But I would expect Kingdom Come to probably be better received on the critical side. And then I think it'll also be more popular on like YouTube and Twitch and stuff. He took my thing.